Dubik Mahama is the immediate past MD of ECG. He's joining us for some reaction to this running story. Mr. Mahama, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Brad.
So I'm going to first take your general reaction to the report, and then I'll ask you a few specific questions which may pertain to your tenure, and then I'll take any other thoughts around the company from you. So I suppose You've seen this 103-page report that has been circulated in the media.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, what is your general reaction to the scope of work they did and the findings they came up with?
I must say I'm scandalized and I'm sad because for a report that has my name in it, the nice and the decency of this whole thing should have been the fact that I should have been given an opportunity to speak to this committee. It has made it very difficult for me to now be playing catch up to the story. I was very hesitant initially to speak because I saw the minister was at a good tangent. The minister is looking for the containers, which we should all be excited about and to be looking for that until this report came out. Yeah, granted there are discrepancies with the numbers, so that is why the minister set up this committee. But to some extent, I started looking at a few of the committee's work, and I realized that it was skewed. First one is within the period, the only period when I was managing director, 2022 to 2024. I left in September. It makes you a bit. It feels funny. It feels funny because what is the committee looking for? And if the committee is going to stay within that ambit, don't I deserve to speak? Or is it that there's the whole exercise of giving the dog a bad name and hanging it?
Okay, so the first point you made is that for somebody who was in charge of the company at the time that this issue was to have happened, they did not talk to you at all. They didn't write to you. They didn't call you. They didn't make an effort to reach you.
At all, Bernard.
Do you know if they spoke to anybody who was directly working with you?
Yes. If they did, all of those people would have spoken to me. Bernard, I've been in this country. Contrary to rumors that were written in some papers back in the day after I resigned, I haven't been anywhere. I have been in this country. I haven't gone anywhere. And honestly, I came to serve. So if there's anything that I have done in the contrary, I should be able to speak to it. Look, this interim report that you're talking about, you can clearly see how the committee was struggling very hard to come up with procurement breaches because they really wanted to put ECG under PPA. But the law is settled on that matter. It's very settled on it. So it makes me a bit jittery. Honestly, it makes me sad. Because for what we managed to achieve within the 2-year, 4-month period that I was managing director, and some of the things that as an individual I had to go through, and to wake up to someone, a whole team put together a report without even giving me 5 minutes of an input.
So that's fair enough. Some could say some committees, of course, they decide how to do their work. They could look on this, talk to the port people, or look at the information they have left. But of course, you deserve a right to be heard. Having said this, there are some very specific things that have been said that I think require your response. So, for example, they blame management's negligence for what they call the hold-up of containers at the port, and that they say that the excuse, they use the word excuse, of lack of funds for which reason the containers were held up was not supported by facts. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Bernard, in my heart of hearts, I've decided not to speak to this document, but I'll give you a scenario. I just try to work around it so it doesn't make anybody feel like I'm getting the issue or running out. Because out of the fact that they didn't give me the respect, I don't want them to get answers to this document in the media space because I feel they are credible answers. And if they have gotten the management meeting minutes or even spoken to, let's say, even the legal director and all of that, they would have gotten what they were looking for. For example, when you write what you've written there, you've oversimplified management. I walked into the office this morning, for example, I'm managing director, I walk in. By 12 o'clock, you have some funds coming in. All of a sudden, you are running short of fuel here. This one is not working right. That one is not working right. You have to throw money at all of that, or else there will be darkness. The cost of household energy has never been calculated in all of this, and why critical resources were put to something else. Bernard, what they call negligence, at some point there was an innovative conversation that was being carried on between management led by my good self with the Ministry of Finance and Engineering, where we were proposing that, look, ECG, these big government hospitals rarely pay their hospital bills. Why don't we do a set of arrangements where these hospital bills are put towards ECG's taxes, so that it becomes a nice cycle where it is based on these bills, it is deemed that ECG has paid Y, then these things come up. ECG just didn't intentionally stop that. No, if you give that impression, it is wrong, because nobody would want to do that, to saddle a company with this kind. But if you don't speak to the right people, you will not get the right information to that effect. But one of the biggest problems I'm having right now is this. I don't even know the committee's terms of reference, 1. 2, containers that are stuck at the port are not in the custody of ECG. The containers have been cleared and were given.
I haven't even come there. And by the way, the scope of work, I read it on air. They were given 6 different things to do, which I can read for your knowledge. Ascertain the circumstance leading to the hold-up of 2,500 containers at the port, confirm the contract that resulted in the demurrage containers, establish the values of the contract of these demurrage, examine ECG's procurement practices, procedures, and processes used for the acquisition of these goods and services, review the company's procurement contracts for the supply of goods and services, and then submit a report on findings on the above. So they then distill 2 key objectives from these 6 issues.
So are you saying that in the terms of reference, there was no such thing about Haftel?
There was. So that's the background. So the Minister of Energy, in a letter dated 31st January, appointed the members of the committee to conduct an investigation into the clearance status of 2,500 containers, procurements, contracts, and transactions, into bracket agreement between ECG and Haptel Limited. Then it then goes on to give the objectives. So the Haptel is mentioned in the background.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do was, whilst you say you don't want to go into the full details because they haven't had the case to respond to you, I believe there are specific things that were said about you that at least I need to give you a chance to respond to. So, for example, they quote that the Director of Procurement, Premises and Estates stated that ECG procured in excess of its demand, but said that this was due to pressure and influence from above, and that this pressure was from the then Managing Director, who awarded contracts to specific suppliers without subjecting them to competitive tendering processes. This falls clearly within your alley of response, does it not?
Then I will do this for you, because I don't really want to speak to this. Now, when you at some point we realize, and I start this by saying, management is a situational issue. It's the situation you find yourself in the chair and the problem you have to tackle and solve in a very short space of time. Now, we asked over 7 companies to set up factories to manufacture meters as installed in Ghana to change our revenue trajectory. These meters, for its installation, it comes with accessories. One of the main accessories are the 2x25 cable. These metering manufacturers now ended up some having in excess of 350,000 meters on the ground. But don't forget, when I took over, ECG was installing about 2,500 meters a month. After the time I was leaving, they were installing about 100,000 a month. The workflow had changed. The speed had come in. But if you don't have a chat with someone who was in the situational seat at that point, to have the conversation, you would come up with something as basic as this. You know, I don't know what transpired at the committee. I don't know what led the director to say that. But the question is this: if that director had such an issue, did he ever put it in writing to me that order from above or grievances? There are board minutes pertaining to directive from the board telling us how to achieve this ambitious plan of replacing over 6 million obsolete meters in the system within a short space of time. ambition. That was the plan. Let's not also forget that the first tenure of Ronaldo Danko Akufo-Addo, the company was being prepared to be sent to PDS. There was no investment into the company. That came to pass. Then PDS failed. ECG took the reins. 2021, there was a managing director. I was a board member. I took over in 2022. In 2022, the board sat down, took policy directives, took the vision, and we started running at the vision with full speed. We gave ourselves some targets that we needed to achieve. All of those were linked. In the life of a utility, is there any such thing as saying that you are over procuring? It has even started raining. Whenever there are atrocities around, everybody is expected to be restored onto the grid as quickly as possible. I would just want to say that, look, I'm giving this as a scenario for us to have at the back of our minds. I don't really want to drill down on the report to give specifics, because I think out of respect, I would rather want to sit with the committee and give them the specifics for us to come out with a comprehensive report.
But can you assure me that for the claims made here, are you saying they are not true, or that there's an explanation for it? I just want to be clear, because they've made a specific allegation that
some are not true, and some have a very, very, very good management explanations to them as to why those decisions were taken. For example, the same report says there was no value for money audit, or let's say HAPTEL. There was. And if careful aims had been taken and they had spoken to they had spoken to the company secretary, it was the board that instructed the value for money. So the report is there. They would have gotten that report. Again, when ECG had that ransomware attack, the funny thing was that sometimes in the morning on my way to work, I listened to your station to get my update. Because funny enough, from the situation room, somebody was giving it to your guys. So that thing, I used to find it very funny. But on the ground, the ECG, person or persons or whoever from ICT who gave evidence at the committee, then he said that in August, the source code was given out. The source code wasn't given out in August, which led to the ransomware attack. The source code was taken by Yoko after the ransomware attack. So somebody went in there, gave a skewed position on the matter, and walked out, and that has been tagged. So when I say I am pained, I am very pained by what has gone on.
All right, now I get what you're trying to say by saying you don't want to directly answer questions raised in the report, but I'm also constrained because all I have before me is the report, so I cannot go beyond what is in front of me. Do you understand my point?
But let me help you. Let me help you with one thing, and let's agree to disagree on this. Look, Bernard, the containers were never in the custody of ECG. If the containers were in the custody of ECG, then you could put the blame squarely at the foot of ECG. The ECG, you took delivery of these containers and the goods are missing. But this is something that the preamble or the prima facie has been established that the containers were still within the port. So for me, as I have said, containers don't get missing. They can get misplaced or they can get lost at sea. And even if they are lost at sea, you'll be notified, because the shipment is cost, freight, and insurance. But the conversation now is, look, I am all for whatever audit, I am all for whatever investigation, and I want all of us to assist the minister, and I am ready to assist the minister, and I am ready to sit with whoever to give my side of the story.
That's very good to hear. I had wanted you to convince us that you are satisfied that the procurement approach you use was right, because again, if you go to paragraph 5 of the summary, that basically because of this so-called pressure, you awarded contracts to suppliers without subjecting them to competitive tendering. They even come up with a table of the various procurements under ECG. Just hold on.
Let me answer this.
I'm coming. And they give a breakdown. I'm coming. They give a breakdown of the various procurement approaches, and they basically point to the fact that for a large majority of your procurement, it was single sourced, and therefore some there was request for quotes, but hardly any went through a national competitive tendering process, and they give a table to support this claim. What's your comment?
Fine. There's an Attorney General's report or legal opinion saying ECG is not subject to Public Procurement Act. So ECG generates its own procurement manual. This same committee said ECG doesn't have a procurement manual. It's not true. Or ECG, look, the procurement manual is always approved at the beginning of the year by the board. Did they check with the company secretary? So you have to go by the procurement. And as the time goes on, if there's anything that you need to do, it's at the board level. Those discussions are had. So look, if you look at how hard this committee tried to pull ECG under PPA, it is settled law. There are Court of Appeal cases to settle this. There are High Court cases to settle this. Why is the committee trying so hard to put? And ECG's procurement manual has something called engineering pricing. It's a pricing model. So when you get the price, the thing is, it's about who can actually perform. Okay, you say they gave X amount of contracts. How many people even managed to complete those contracts because of the cost of financing? When you throw out these facts, it's like you are trying to smear someone to think what will take. But what is the end in all of this? If there are procurement breaches, let's see, I want to go further with the conversation. If there are procurement breaches, the principal attorney under Article, I've forgotten the exact Article 7 and the Article 80s about attorney general, is the one who's supposed to prosecute. And so there's another legal opinion from the attorney general saying that we have deviated from this position. ECG uses public funds.
The committee claims that the ECG was not a primary recipient of this legal opinion from the AG you are referring to, and that was sent to some other person. But I'm coming. Be that as it may, they have a different legal view on what you say is the procurement process you use, because according to them, ECG has not been granted an exemption by the PPA to procure using established commercial practices. And basically, they are saying that you cannot do anything without recourse to Act 663 as amended, especially Section 15.2. So I'm coming. You made reference to your procurement manual. So I'm just pointing to you that they are making reference to laws, which I believe in the hierarchy of laws, and an act of parliament is obviously higher than the procurement manual. So that if there's any inconsistency, the higher law must win as a non-lawyer.
Bernard,
right?
Bernard, if we are going to talk law here, ECG is a limited liability company. Under the true definition of public funds, if you fall under it, you fall under it. If you don't fall under it, you don't fall under it. Let's not forget, you don't assume a burden that has not been imposed on you. So if that is the committee's position, and that's how the committee wants to go, fine, so be it. Because if we are to go to court today, okay, the mere fact that the opinion was not addressed to ECG, did they check to see whether ECG was copied on the opinion? The mere fact that it wasn't.
So are you saying that because ECG is a limited liability company, your operations do not fall under the Public Financial Management Act or the SIGA Act? Because again,
when you write to,
let me just ask the question, because you've said ECG is a limited liability company, which is true, but we understand that there are statutes like the SIGA Act 2019 Act 990 and the Public Financial Management Act 2016 Act 921, which bring activities of ECG and its board under the overriding supervision of the GOG, because the government of Ghana, even though it's a limited liability company, the government of Ghana is the sole shareholder. So these two acts of parliament bring your activities, both you management and the board, under the overriding supervision of the government of Ghana and its specified agencies, which is why then the argument around your procurement approach is discussed and then fault is found. And I'm pointing that out to you.
And I'm also responding by saying, as a limited liability company, we are bound by our procurement manual being as prescribed and approved by the board. If there are any discrepancies, it's when you are subject to using public funds. If that is not the case, let's go and seek clarity. My point is, yes, you have written all of these things. before you started or after we are done now, are we now going to write to the Attorney General to seek his opinion that ECG doesn't fall within this? And I'm telling you, I was actually sued in court on this same matter. And it was, when I was MD, I was sued at the High Court, and it was clearly stated that the judge was clear on the matter, of which those judgments are there. I find it very, very, very disheartening, again, because if all of this are happening, there must be a holistic conversation. At least listen to me, take what I have, go through it, compare, put it in there. But if you go on the tangent, because listen, Bernard, maybe your company may have shareholders. Do the shareholders take part in the day-to-day running of the company? No. But the shareholder will always afford you an opportunity to explain the vision and the direction that you were running the company or where you were sending the company to. If it is not in consonance with what the shareholder wants to do, fine, so be it. But as I said, there are certain things that are missing in that report.
Okay.
That makes the conversation very, very murky for me.
We'll leave the legalities of the procurement for a minute, but they also made a claim that your procurement did not follow approved budget. And they actually put a table again to show what they call wide variances between what was actually procured and what was budgeted for. And some of these are in the millions and percentages in the hundreds. That's pretty serious.
Okay, so Bernard, I told you, management is a situational issue. If they had spoken to the company secretary, they would have seen the ambition and drive the company decided to go on. As again, I told you, the company hadn't seen any capital injection, and the realities on the ground were coming at the company very fast and big. Now, at some point, for example, and I would want to be sticking to examples instead of addressing the issues directly.
Yes,
because,
go ahead.
as I said, for example, an area like Chado. Daniels, you ask somebody, oh, you have money. I don't have money, but he's building. They are done. He joined a transformer that was supposed to be for 10 homes. Now it's coming to your notice. If you don't solve the problem, the cost of unsold energy will catch up with you. What do you then do? You sit down. The company decided to embark on an intensification drive because Amasaman, Okwase, Oyarefa, Chado, all the new and upcoming areas. For example, in Kumasi, there was a problem. New power plant was moved to Kumasi. You needed to construct a new line from Ahomaso to Kase. Will you say you will not do it? If you sit with management will show you, or if you sit with the people that were there, they will show you what the issues were when they were sitting down, what issues confronted them, which led them to take certain decisions. You see, when we do these things, we paint a picture of somebody just trying to make money. It's not fair on some. Listen, this thing is something that
maybe it will help us. Fair enough.
From taking
Dubik, it will help us if we knew what these containers contained, because you've said that because management is situational. Just 1 second. I want to ask the question so that people can follow the conversation. Just allow me, because we all don't know what was in the containers. The answer you give may not be put in proper context. You're saying that because management is situational and demand is so variable, the fact that you've budgeted for X amount of items does not mean you have to stick to it. You may have to get X plus 2 because the demand is growing. I understand this. But I can only put it in better context if I know whether these containers are containers for meters or conductors or electric poles. So what exactly were in these containers?
Now, first, there are wood poles in there. There are conductors in there. And there are also, the meters, we changed the formula. With meters, we said, we are not buying or we are not importing meters anymore. A company, through the board, came up with a policy that if you want to supply meters to ECG, you must have a factory in Ghana supply so that we can hold you accountable on its warranty. So what we then did was that since all of these people are going to be installing in excess of about 350,000 or 450,000 meters, we must make sure that all these accompanying accessories are available, because one of the agreements we had with the suppliers was that we are not going to delay you based on, based on the fact that we didn't give you the materials that you needed to install these meters. That was a critical conversation that we had with them. So in all fairness, there were decisions that were taken to make the company better, and it reflected in the company's revenue.
So let me understand this. You had to procure a lot of things: meters, conductors, poles, transformers, and cables, and some of it you had to procure beyond what you budgeted for because of the demands of the time. So
Yes.
what was the reason why the containers could not be cleared? Because the report claims that it was a lack of funds that led to the clearing. Because if these things are so needed, how come these things you need so much that you have even over procured?
I answered this earlier.
No, hold on. I'm not framing it. How come the thing that you need with so much urgency will spend so much time at the port that it will incur demurrage to the tune of excess? And number two, that your organization's own clearing unit could not clear it, and that they needed to now get a third party to do the clearance. And some of the third parties are even giving money to go ahead to do the clearing. This is all in the report.
You see, that is the clarity in the report that is not fair. I didn't sign those contracts with third party people. I don't know much about that side of it, so I can't speak to it. Now, back to the first question. When I took office, we had ECG it was 1 year after coming back from PDS. We are now waiting for the PDS arbitration award. Okay, containers pertaining to PDS were left in the port. Why? If you take delivery of those containers, it will be part of the claim of of PDS in arbitration. Again, when I took office, there were containers stuck at the port belonging to a contract called the LNR contract that was being investigated by Yoko. Those containers were stuck at the port. Yes, you see, all of these things are factually not in the report. Unless they want us to believe that all those containers have been taken out. There are a lot of things that do not add up for me. And yesterday, it came to my knowledge that this by another group, another media house, that has created to cut some containers. Look, Bernard, I am all for the audit. I am all for the forensic audit. Bernard, I never schooled abroad. I am homegrown. I grew up in Fadama, 2 lanes from the chief imam's house. My mother used to teach at Fadama school. I have nowhere to go. I don't have any abode outside this country. I came to serve. I am available to be spoken to. I want to account for my stewardship because I do believe that I did a great job when I had the opportunity to serve the Republic of Ghana.
So, if I get you right, the point around the inconsistency between pressure to import and yet lack of money and urgency in clearing is not necessarily intentional. It's the circumstance of managing a company like ECG. That's number one. Number two, you're saying the issue of third parties being contracted to do the clearing is not something you did or endorsed. So you cannot be blamed for that. Even if it may have happened at the time that you were MD. Because from what I'm reading here, that there were contracts given to third parties to do clearing within this period under review.
The date the contract was signed. Who signed it?
At the specific point does not mention the date. They just said even though the reason given by ECG for not clearing.
Why would I not feel slighted? That is probably a witch hunt. Let's be specific.
No, but by the way ECG works, can a contract be entered with a third party to clear a good without the MD's knowledge?
Yes, so who signed it? Who signed that contract?
It is not stated here, but I do know that they mentioned the director of procurement.
I left in September.
Mm-hmm.
October, November, December, January, February. That's when the committee started sitting. Who signed those contracts? Let's leave. The jury is out of that.
So you're saying that could have happened beyond your time?
Yes, yes.
But to be fair, the report has not been. At least I haven't presented the report as a report on Dubik Mahama necessarily. If you read the report carefully, if you read the report, it talks about ECG management. So and then it also talks about the time. So some of the issues could have happened.
How many people's names were written out? Their names in full. We'll go through the full report. Did they mention the director of procurement's name full there? Did they mention any? Which other? Only my name was mentioned fully.
Could it not be because you were MD for the longer period within which this whole thing happened? Right?
Could this not also be that they want to give the dog a bad name and hang it?
Is that what you suspect?
Why didn't the committee speak to me?
Have you spoken to the minister since this report came out?
Yes, I had a word with the minister.
And did you point out to him that the committee did not speak to you? And what is his response?
He said he is going to try and make sure that is corrected.
Yesterday, he said three things: that he's spoken to the AG so that certain aspects of this that require action from the prosecutor side will move. He's spoken to the National Investigating Bureau to do a forensic audit. And then he's spoken to the National Security Secretariat to also help with specific issues around the containers. What's your response to this?
Fantastic decision. I applaud it because we all want the truth. Look, the committee didn't do the minister any favors. The committee, actually, in my opinion, they failed the minister. So for the minister to take this approach speaks volumes for me. And I believe strongly with this tangent, everything will come out to bear.
Finally, do you believe that all these 2,500 containers have not been lost and that the state will not lose? Because you don't forget the way the story was portrayed, it was that we've lost 1,300 or so containers. Is it your view that they are in the jurisdiction and that as far as you know, the contents will largely be secure? It's just a question of where specifically they are.
That is what I believe, because I believe in shipping, even from the comfort of my home. If I've ordered something, I can take the container number. The container number is unique to every container. I can find it. A container is not like a piece of paper that somebody can crumple and throw away. Or to tease you this morning, I can't say a container is like the kose that you have eaten, so now we can't find the kose, it's lost. Understand? The conversation is clear that if there's a system, let's allow GPHA, let's afford them the opportunity, give them the numbers. There are other terminals so that they can look into those terminals to find or locate those containers. Let's give it time. That's what I think. Yes, in my opinion, I wrote some letters some time back to ask GRA to halt the sale of sub-containers. I believe if all of those have also been done, the system that they have will show where all those containers are. So I just think that we should just give it time. And I feel that, yes, the containers have been misplaced. I don't think they are missing. And with the right time, as the minister also said in his conclusion, they will come back to the Republic or where the containers are.
We'll leave it here for now. Thank you for talking to us, Samuel Dubik Mahama.
Okay. Thank you too, my brother. Have a great day.
Yes, that was the former MD of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama.